Have you been tasked with developing or revising a program at your community college? If so, chances are you could use some help in starting the process. You've come to the right place. The CVS team can support you at these critical early stages, and the first thing we'll tell you to do is to select an MTCU code that will provide the best foundation for your new program. According to the MTCU code is a 5-digit number assigned by the ministry to post-secondary programs of instruction and used to identify the provincial program category to which programs that are broadly similar in their vocational objectives and titles have been assigned. This category is referred to as a family, and codes within the same family share themes and dimensions across credential levels. The credential level is identified by the first number of the MTCU code, and the last 4 numbers illustrate the family. If we look at accounting programs as an example, you'll see how the MTCU code separates them by credential, 40,000, 50,000, 60,000, 70,000, but also groups them as family, connected by themes and dimensions through the use of the last 4 digits, in this case 0100. The MTCU code provides the basis of any new program proposal or program modification. It is the first and most important step because it creates the framework for all aspects of the program, and it includes critical information that will help expedite the process of validation. There are a number of key elements contained in an MTCU code worth exploring: program titles and vocational learning outcomes, course hours, program duration and instructional settings, program weight and funding unit, and tuition limits. Each of these elements has significance to program development and review. So let's take a closer look at why they are so useful. Program titles are connected to the MTCU code. The first program ever validated under a code sets the precedent for titles of programs that are validated later, so teams must consider the titles of existing validated programs. For MTCU codes attached to program standards, the program title must be the same as that of the standard. You may propose a modifier, which must be supported by additional VLOs. For MTCU codes attached to program descriptions, titling is more flexible. The titles should still be reflective of the program focus and should include at least one word from the MTCU code family. Much like program titles, the VLOs of a new program proposal in an MTCU code must align with those of previously validated programs under that same code. MTCU codes with program standards must use the stated VLOs of the standard at a minimum. Additional VLOs can be added, especially if there is a proposed title modifier for the program. For MTCU codes with a program description, proposed VLOs must align to the equivalent VLO in the existing description, but changes are acceptable. Ensure that the themes and dimensions of the existing base VLOs are considered and captured in the proposed VLOs, and if an existing VLO is not being used in the new program proposal, provide a rationale to justify its exclusion. Funding for a program is calculated by the MCU to reflect the proposed number of hours and instructional settings. Existing programs in an MTCU code set the precedent for all new programs in the same code as it relates to titles, program duration, instructional settings, program weight, and funding unit. Consequently, if a program's hours, duration, and/or instructional setting vary drastically from other programs in the same MTCU code, the submission may not be funded by the MCU. If a program's hours, duration, and/or instructional settings align with other programs in the same MTCU code, the submission should be approved and funded. It's worth noting that if the funding review does not include the same elements as the validation done by CVS, the MCU may assign a different MTCU code to a program during its approval process. Additionally, colleges need to consider tuition limits. MTCU codes have a maximum allowable fee structure the college has to work within. Much of the information we've discussed related to the MTCU code can be found on the Ministry's Approved Program Sequence, or APPS table, which is located on the MCU website. This table includes a list of all funded programs and is updated routinely by the MCU. It's a great source of information related to the MTCU code, including titles, duration, program weight, and funding units. CVS highly recommends consulting this document prior to the creation or modification of a program at your institution. Sometimes a standard or description for a credential type doesn't exist in a particular MTCU code. In these cases, colleges should use an MTCU code in the same family for a different credential and be sure to demonstrate the proper level of performance for the proposed credential as outlined in the Framework for Programs of Instruction. In some cases, for example when developing a program in a new field of practice, you may be required to map to more than one MTCU code. In these cases, CVS will work with colleges to provide guidance on how best to proceed with development that meets the needs of the intended program. Remember, we don't map to programs, we map to MTCU codes. It's important to consult with CVS early in your development process to ensure proper MTCU code selection and alignment for your proposed program. We are always here to help.